Samaritan is a movie written by Julius Avery, stars Sylvester Stallone and Javon Walton, about the citizens of Granite City learning that the hero who's been gone for over 25 years after fighting his arch rival Nemesis still walks among them. Now, the pacing for this movie is pretty good. The acting was okay, but the plot in this movie is bad. A lot of the whole plot is a bunch of set pieces to get from point A to point B to point C, and everything in this movie happens purely for it's convenient. It is convenient. I don't feel like any of it was really worked up to or added any value outside of it. It has a lot of plot holes, a lot. But we'll take it from the top. So it starts focusing on Sam, which is a kid who lost his father. He's kind of on the rails. He's getting involved in gang life, and so he's always hoping. He has a very idealistic mind. He's always hoping for these superheroes to be alive, namely Samaritan. And in this movie also is Dasha Pancho, I think I said her name right, as his mother. She doesn't really have too much to do in this movie. She's maybe got 10 minutes total if you add it together of scene time. But their relationship is that she's just never around because she has to work, and you do see where they're in danger of being evicted. So he's in the streets, kind of hustling, kind of drifting with the bad crowd, getting a little bit of money to help his family. And in doing this, he meets Joe Smith, which is Samaritan. And the movie kind of builds off of there. But the biggest thing with this movie is it doesn't really flush too many of the characters. There are not too many likable characters. So I said, Sam is very clingy. He kind of sticks to Joe Smith too easy. And it's kind of just weird how he just clings to him. Joe Smith, he doesn't want nothing to do with anybody. He's very standoffish. He wants to be left alone. That all makes sense as you watch the movie as to why. Dasha, she doesn't really get developed or fleshed as a character outside of being the protective mom. And then you have Clyde, played by Palu Asbeck, who is basically the bad guy of this show, of the movie. Typical villain. And it's about primarily Nemesis, the rival in which Samaritan fought and disappeared, seemingly coming back on the rise. But as far as the plot goes, the plot is very loose. To say that there's a plot, there isn't a plot, right? I'll give you some examples. Clyde basically runs like a garage. They're doing little hit and run jobs on stores, his crew. They're flipping cars. Nothing to be a major bad guy, like a major villain for this show. But there is literally a scene after he acquires the gear of Nemesis where he goes and basically deals moderate damage to a city block. And you will see the people come out and they see it. He gives this speech that, I'm sorry, if you see him, it just gave me bad Bane vibes. Bane as in Dark Knight Rises Bane. He gives a very bad speech about how the city is failing them, how they need to rise up and take back the city and overthrow the city. But the problem is, you never see crime in this city. You never see where the city is overwritten with crime and the city's failing them. And that's his ideology. That's Clyde's ideology, is that they need to overthrow the city, and that's what he thought, or what he thinks Nemesis' dream is. And so he goes on himself to don that dream. But it's just loose. And then to make it worse is after he gives this speech, after he just basically destroyed the city block, random people came out that were in the stores, that was in the living above the stores in their apartments, and they agree with him. They just look like, okay, all right, yeah, you're right. And then they just start handing out masks, and this is how he builds his army. This is how he gets his henchmen. He didn't do anything to grow his henchmen. He didn't do anything, but he needs henchmen. So the movie gives him henchmen this way. Nothing ever really accounts to anything in this movie. I keep saying show. Because everything is given and everything exists only for it to continue. Joe Smith, he says he has a weakness, and they explain his powers. They explain the weakness of his powers, but then conveniently, his powers. I mean, his weakness it comes and goes. It's not consistent because his weakness gets far better exploited later on in the movie, and he's fine. And so it's hard to watch this movie. I really wanted to like this movie. I really did, but it's loosey-goosey with the plot. Everybody is conveniently in the right spot, always. He conveniently first spots when they are jumping Sam. You've seen that in the trailer. There's other times where Sam gets in trouble where they just happen to, like, he literally gets in trouble he gets in trouble somewhere else. I don't want to spoil it, but then he gets taken right to the window of Joe Smith. Why? Oh, well, so Joe Smith can save him. Because where he was before, he was literally like in a junkyard. There was no saving him. He was going to die. And the movie just keeps this pace. It does it to where nothing really makes sense. Even the big fight scene payoff, the third act, where, he's like, okay, I got to come out. I got to do something because Clyde is becoming so much of a bad guy. I have to step out from the shadows. Which, by the way, as far as him being a bad guy in the city going in the Pearl, that don't work. Like, when he first turned the citizens, they go and they riot and they tear up the city, and then they go back to work the next day. Like, you're like, hey Bob, after work you want to go torch a couple of chapels, and you want to go beat up some civilians. Yeah, sure, yeah. I got my sledgehammer in the trunk right next to the AR, and then it's like daytime is regular day, and then nighttime, and these are regular civilians that's doing this. It don't make any sense. But I digress. The third act of this movie, I really wanted to like it. You see flashes of his powers, but he is strong. He's basically Superman without flying, or the super jumping, or scratch that, without flying and heat vision. The third act of this movie, the main reason why I feel like it fails is Sylvester Stallone is old. I'm sorry. I love his movies. I loved all of the Expendables. The guy is 78. Most of the fight scenes in the last act, you can kind of see him laboring. And I mind you, he is playing an older hero here too. But the fight scenes, and he's in better shape than I am, right? He's better in most shape than most people. At 78, it's amazing. But the fight scenes you see, he kind of walks like Herman Munster, like he has those big goth boots on. And he's trudging. And when they hit him, he waits for the hit. He basically always waits to get hit. And then he'll just trudge over, and he'll do something else, and he'll trudge over, and he'll do something else, and he'll break a gun. When he finally shows up at Clyde's warehouse. He's 78. Like this is his Murdoch moment. Murdoch moment from like Lethal Weapon. He says, "I'm too old for this ish." That's what it looks like. And then how he deals, what happens between him and Clyde. It's not good. I mean, it's not. It ends in a way that makes no sense. Impossible, literally, for that to happen, right? And there's a twist in this movie, but the funny part is, I watched this with my wife, and she called the twist in the first 10 minutes of this movie, and I was like, "Nah, that's not true. I mean, you can't do that. You wouldn't do that. That's so easy." But that was a twist. She called it. And it didn't make sense. Nothing in this movie made sense. Again, the citizens turned to evil. It wasn't warranted. Didn't make sense. The fact that Clyde thinks he's a good guy and that nemesis from in the past was a good guy makes no sense. Or that he's doing the right work when everything he's been doing is he's been a low-level hustler boss, running a garage shop and having his men out doing like pickpocket jobs. So it just doesn't make sense. I just hope maybe I know he was planning on making Expendables 4. I hope he don't. Or if he does, he just directs it, writes it. Because Father Time's undefeated. I could see where this might have been a little bit better if they got somebody a little bit younger. But the writing is all over the place. The acting's over the place. If I had to give it a rating, maybe I would give it 2.5 out of 5 stars. 2.8 out of 5 stars. There were some pieces I like here and there, but I just couldn't fully get with this movie. And I wanted to. I really, really wanted to. I was a person when Marvel started getting on the ground, when that's over 10 years ago, I was still hoping that he could get in as a hero or something in some capacity. I know he was in Guardians of the Galaxy, but I'm saying in a bigger capacity. And I think this is why he did this movie. Him and Arnold. Well, Arnold did do a action movie that was Jingle All the Way. I think he played a superhero or something like that. But I think he wanted to do a superhero movie, and he wanted to check that box, and so he signed himself on with this movie, and that's what this movie feels like. But enough of what I feel about this movie. What do you feel about it? If you liked it, leave a comment how you feel about it. If you didn't like it, you think I'm crazy and this is like the best movie ever, hey, comment, like, share. Again, this is Revos. This is my first review. I hope you enjoy it. Have a good one.